AITA for refusing to host my sister's big life event at my house after she ignored multiple warnings. I, 32F, have a younger sister, Jenna, 29F, who I've always had a complicated relationship with. Growing up, she was charming and sweet, but she also had a tendency to push boundaries and ignore consequences, often leaving me to pick up the pieces. As adults, we've tried to set healthier boundaries, but she has a knack for guilt-tripping and emotional manipulation. A little context about my living situation. I bought a modest 3-bedroom townhouse a few years ago. It's perfect for me and my fiancé, Mike, 34M. We've worked hard to make a cozy space, and we both value having our home as a private sanctuary. We're not against having people over, but we're very intentional about how and when. About 6 months ago, Jenna announced that she was planning a big life event for herself. She didn't specify much at first, just that it was something huge and that she wanted to be at my house because she loved it and thought it would be perfect. I told her up front that while I'd love to celebrate with her, my house isn't suitable for large events. I explained that our townhouse is small, the backyard is tiny, and we live in a townhouse complex with strict noise rules. I also made it clear that I have work commitments and can't commit to hosting something big. She nodded and said she understood. 2 months later, she texted me again, this time asking if she could at least host a dinner for 20 people at my house. I reminded her about our previous conversation and added that 20 people is way more than my townhouse can handle comfortably. I suggested other options, like renting a small event space or hosting at her apartment. She dismissed these ideas, claiming that my house had the right energy and that it would mean so much to her personally. I told her no, again explaining that it's not feasible and that I couldn't host. She got quiet, and the conversation ended awkwardly. Fast forward to 2 weeks ago, Jenna sent a long message asking me why I was being so difficult and selfish and claiming that she'd already promised everyone it would be at my house and that now she was ruined. I was shocked because, as far as I knew, she hadn't confirmed anything with anyone yet. I reiterated my boundaries and refused again. She then accused me of never supporting her and that I was letting my fiancé dictate everything. I was frustrated but stayed firm. The next day, I came home to find a printed invitation for her event sitting on my kitchen counter. It was addressed to people she had invited and clearly stated my house as the location. I immediately called her, and she said, "Oh, I just figured you'd say yes eventually, so I went ahead." I was furious. I told her she could not host it at my house and that she needed to cancel immediately. She argued that canceling now would embarrass her and all the guests, claiming it would be unfair to everyone who had already RSVP'd. I reminded her that the responsibility for the event lies with her and that I had never agreed. She refused to cancel and started contacting my neighbors, telling them about her event and trying to get their support for her hosting it. Some neighbors called me, confused and upset that she had planned a gathering without approval. I had to explain that I was not hosting and that any attempts to hold it at my house would be trespassing. It was stressful and humiliating. I decided to send Jenna a firm message stating that if she showed up with any guests at my house, I would call the police. She reacted by sending a series of guilt-tripping texts, accusing me of being cruel, comparing me to our mother, who often let her manipulate people, and claiming I was ruining her life. I didn't respond beyond repeating that she was not allowed at my home. She then turned to our extended family, painting me as the villain. My parents called me, upset that I had embarrassed her. I explained the situation in detail and emphasized that I had repeatedly set boundaries. They seemed to understand, but were visibly conflicted because Jenna is very persuasive and has a history of making herself the victim. A few days ago, Jenna announced on social media that she had found a way to make it happen and that the event would be at a very special location, without specifying where. I suspect she rented a space without telling me, which is good because my home is no longer involved. Despite this, she's been sending passive-aggressive messages about how I never support her and always ruin her plans. Mike and I are frustrated because this entire ordeal has been stressful and emotionally exhausting. We feel justified in enforcing our boundaries, especially because she repeatedly ignored them. Some friends and a few family members are telling me I might be overreacting and that I should have found a compromise to avoid family drama. But honestly, every attempt I made to compromise was ignored, and she escalated anyway. Now I'm left feeling guilty, and part of me worries that maybe I'm being the bad sister here. But I truly feel that hosting an event at my house after repeatedly saying no would have been unreasonable and unfair to both Mike and me, as well as a huge risk to our home and peace of mind. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to host my sister's event and setting strict boundaries despite her repeated pressure and attempts to manipulate the situation. Character count, 6,421 if you want. I can also create another one with a slightly more dramatic twist and a shocking ending, which often gets the most traction on Reddit. Do you want me to do that? If you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. It really helps the channel grow and motivates me to keep creating more great content. Don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss a new upload. Thanks so much for your support. AITA for refusing to let my brother's fiancée plan my wedding. I've always been close with my older brother, Mark. We grew up in a small town, and despite our occasional sibling rivalry, we've always had a really strong bond. So when he got engaged to his fiancée, Emily, a few years ago, I was genuinely happy for him. Emily is sweet enough, and I could tell that she really makes him happy. That being said, she and I have never been particularly close, and I think she has always had a bit of a controlling streak that sometimes bothers me. A little background. I'm 28 and my fiancée, Alex, and I have been dating for 5 years. We recently got engaged and immediately started talking about weddings. From the very beginning, I knew I wanted a fairly intimate ceremony with a focus on family and close friends, rather than some over-the-top, Pinterest-style production. Alex and I are both fairly low-key people, and we just wanted something that felt personal and relaxed. I've always been very hands-on with planning things, and I was looking forward to putting together the wedding with Alex. The problem started a few months ago when Mark and Emily came over for dinner. Emily somehow steered the conversation to weddings, and I casually mentioned some of the things Alex and I were considering. She immediately started offering suggestions, decor, themes, even the seating chart. At first, I just nodded politely, thinking she was just trying to be helpful. But she didn't stop there. The next thing I knew, she was insisting that I should have a vision board session with her so she could give me professional advice on how to make the wedding really special. She suggested that she could coordinate everything so that I wouldn't have to worry about it all. I politely declined, explaining that Alex and I wanted to do most of the planning ourselves, but Emily seemed offended. She said that I was being ungrateful and that she just wanted to help because she has so much experience with weddings and knows what looks good. I reminded her that we had our own vision and that we appreciated her input, but preferred to make our own decisions. At that point, she got visibly annoyed and made a comment about how families should stick together and help each other out, implying that refusing her help was somehow a personal affront. Over the next few weeks, Emily began dropping hints whenever she was around Mark or me. She'd say things like, "I just don't understand why people hire wedding planners when they have family who can do it for them." Or, "It's going to be so much work if you insist on doing it all yourself. You don't want the day to be a disaster, do you?" I tried to brush it off, but it was starting to feel like she was deliberately undermining our choices. The tipping point came a few days ago. Mark, Emily, Alex, and I met for lunch to discuss some family logistics. Out of nowhere, Emily pulled out her phone with a full spreadsheet of wedding ideas, color palettes, flower arrangements, table layouts, catering options, even music playlists. She said she had spent hours compiling the best options and wanted to present them to us. Alex and I told her again that we really appreciated the effort, but we were sticking with our own plans. Emily got frustrated, slammed the phone down, and said something along the lines of, "Fine, but don't say I didn't try to save your wedding from being a total mess." Mark, who usually supports me, didn't say much, probably because he was trying to keep the peace, but I could tell he was slightly uncomfortable with the tension. After lunch, I texted Mark to explain that I wasn't trying to be difficult, but I felt that Emily was overstepping. I said I wanted the wedding to feel like Alex and me, not like some project she was running. Mark responded by saying that Emily was just trying to be helpful and that I might be overreacting. I tried to explain that it didn't feel helpful at all. It felt controlling. He then suggested maybe we could compromise by letting Emily handle small things like party favors or decorations. But I refused. I felt that once you let her take control of one aspect, she'd try to run the whole thing. The situation escalated further when Emily started sending me long messages with links to vendors and even tried to book appointments for us without asking. I immediately canceled the appointments and politely told her not to make any decisions on our behalf. She called me later, crying, and said that I was rejecting the family and that my refusal was hurting Mark. She insisted that she just wanted to help because she loves both of us and wants our day to be perfect. I tried to reassure her that I love Mark and value his opinion, but our wedding is not something I feel comfortable letting her control. At this point, Mark is caught in the middle. He has told me he understands my concerns, but also feels Emily's feelings are being hurt. Emily has been subtly guilt-tripping me, saying things like, "You don't want anyone to be upset on your big day, do you?" I told her repeatedly that my wedding is about celebrating my relationship with Alex and our families, not giving her a sense of accomplishment. She got extremely defensive and said that I was overreacting and selfish, which hurt because I genuinely want her to feel included in a reasonable way. I've tried to find a middle ground. I've suggested that she could help with things like crafting centerpieces if she really wants to be involved, but only if I'm present and supervising. She refused and said that it wouldn't feel right unless she could do it her way. I feel like any involvement she has to be on my terms, or it defeats the purpose of having the wedding feel like Alex and me. Now I feel stuck. I don't want to hurt Emily or create tension with Mark, but I also can't let her take over something that's supposed to be mine and Alex's special day. The stress is starting to get to me, and I'm worried that standing my ground will permanently damage my relationship with my brother. So, Reddit, am I the asshole for refusing to let my brother's fiancée plan my wedding? Character count, 6652. Do you want me to draft a second story with a completely different scenario in the same style? Or just this one for now? AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of a family feud that started years ago. I, 32F, have a complicated relationship with my family, and honestly, I'm still not sure if I'm the asshole here. It all started about 6 years ago. My younger sister, Emily, 28F, has always been closer to our parents than I ever was. Growing up, I was more independent, more outspoken, and apparently that rubbed my parents the wrong way. I never realized how deep this resentment went until my parents started subtly favoring Emily in major life events. The tipping point came when my father had a major heart surgery about 6 years ago. Emily was around every single day, fussing over him, making sure meals were perfect, and basically running the household while he recovered. I visited maybe twice a week because of my work schedule and some distance issues. I live about 2 hours away, but I made an effort when I could. My father's recovery was slow, and while he appreciated my visits, he often said things to Emily in front of me like, "You're doing more than your sister ever could," which honestly hurt. I tried to shrug it off, thinking he was just stressed and confused from the surgery. Things escalated when my mother started subtly encouraging me to move closer to help with the family more. I explained that my job is demanding and moving wasn't feasible right now. My suggestions of helping in smaller ways, sending groceries, organizing appointments, checking in over video calls, were met with what I can only describe as passive-aggressive remarks. Emily, on the other hand, never had to justify her decisions or schedule to anyone. Over time, it felt like I was being punished for not being perfect while Emily's efforts were constantly praised. Fast forward a few years, Emily met her now fiancé, Mark. Mark is a nice guy, but he's very traditional, and Emily has always liked that dynamic. Early in their relationship, she started making more and more decisions about the family that felt controlling. For example, she insisted that certain holidays had to be celebrated in a specific way at her apartment, leaving me out unless I explicitly asked if I could join. I initially tried to shrug it off, but over time, I started feeling like Emily was deliberately pushing me to the sidelines. About a year ago, Emily got engaged. The first wedding planning meeting I was invited to, I noticed the guest list included extended friends and family I had never met, while some of my closest friends weren't even considered. I brushed it off, thinking maybe they were trying to keep numbers down. Then came the bridesmaids discussion. Emily asked me if I want to be a bridesmaid. I hesitated because I didn't feel close enough to be in that role, but I didn't want to hurt her feelings. I said yes, thinking I could do my part gracefully. Then things took a turn. Emily and Mark started making very specific rules for the wedding. Colors, dresses, travel arrangements, and even gift expectations. I tried to follow along, but Emily would send messages criticizing small things I couldn't control, like travel delays or outfit choices. I offered to help in ways that didn't involve being constantly on call, but she kept insisting, if you can't fully commit, maybe you shouldn't be involved. At first, I thought she was joking, but the tone never changed. The last straw was a few months ago. I had a sudden family emergency. My apartment caught fire due to faulty wiring. Thankfully, nobody was hurt, but I had to deal with insurance, temporary housing, and replacing important items. I sent Emily a message explaining that I wouldn't be able to help with the wedding as much over the next month. I offered to still participate as a bridesmaid and attend the events I could. Emily's response was cold. If you can't fully commit, maybe you shouldn't be in the wedding. We need people who prioritize us. I was furious. I've dealt with plenty of stressful situations in my life, but Emily's message felt like a complete dismissal of my circumstances and an attack on my loyalty. I talked to my parents, hoping they would intervene or at least mediate. Instead, they sided with Emily, saying, "It's your choice, but she's right. This is her big day." At that point, I realized the family dynamic isn't going to change, and I began seriously considering skipping the wedding altogether. I didn't make the decision lightly. I weighed the pros and cons. I preserved my mental health, avoid being treated unfairly, and set a boundary. Cons, family fallout, potential estrangement, and guilt for not supporting my sister. Ultimately, I told Emily I wouldn't be attending the wedding. I sent a long, heartfelt message explaining why, emphasizing that it wasn't about Mark or even the wedding itself, but about how past events and constant criticism have made it emotionally unsafe for me to participate. The response from Emily and my parents was explosive. Emily accused me of being selfish, dramatic, and ungrateful. She said, "After everything I've done for you, you can't even show up for my wedding?" My parents chimed in, disappointed and upset, saying, "Family should support each other. You're making this about yourself." Extended family members who found out also started asking questions, many assuming I must have done something terrible to warrant this reaction. Since then, there's been a cold war in my family. Emily refuses to speak to me directly, sending passive-aggressive texts through my mother instead. My parents are clearly frustrated, and I feel like I've been painted as the villain in a story where I'm simply trying to protect my own boundaries. Friends and some cousins understand my perspective, but even they are anxious about how this will affect future family events. I feel conflicted. Part of me thinks I did the right thing by standing up for myself, setting boundaries, and refusing to be treated like I'm disposable. Another part of me feels guilty for missing one of the most important days in my sister's life, especially since we grew up so closely. I keep replaying scenarios in my head where I could have handled it differently, but nothing seems to satisfy everyone without compromising my own well-being. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding due to a long-standing family feud and her treatment of me. The whole situation is messy, and I'm bracing for backlash from multiple sides. Character count, 6,428 if you want. I can write a second version that pushes closer to the 7,000 character limit with even more family drama and backstory to feel like a blockbuster Reddit AITA post. Do you want me to do that? AITA for ruining my sister's wedding by refusing to babysit her kids? This is going to sound like a classic family drama, but I honestly don't think I'm the one in the wrong here. I, 32F, have a younger sister, Emily, 29F, who recently got married. She has 2 kids from a previous relationship, a 6-year-old and a 4-year-old. I've always had a complicated relationship with her, but we were fairly close growing up. Lately, though, things have been tense because I've been trying to establish some boundaries around how much I help her with her kids. A few weeks before her wedding, Emily asked me if I could babysit her kids for the evening of the rehearsal dinner. I initially said I was busy, but she pressed and asked if I could just do it for a couple of hours. I told her I don't mind watching them occasionally, but not during major events like her wedding or rehearsal dinner, because I wanted to enjoy the celebration and not feel obligated to manage her children. I explained that this isn't about not wanting to help her, but about setting boundaries so I don't burn out because her kids are lively and high maintenance, and I already do a lot when she asks me for rides, last-minute errands, or favors. Emily got really upset. She started crying and said I was being selfish and didn't care about her big day. She reminded me that her husband's family was coming from out of town and they wouldn't have anyone to watch the kids, and that all the other bridesmaids were helping out with small kids and their families. I still told her I couldn't commit to babysitting that evening. She got louder and said I was putting my own comfort over family and accused me of ruining her wedding experience for her. The night of the rehearsal dinner, my sister's husband ended up asking my parents to watch the kids, and apparently, my refusal led to a lot of tension. Emily didn't speak to me during most of the wedding day and barely acknowledged me when she arrived. Several relatives later told me I should have just helped her out and that weddings are supposed to be about family pitching in, but I felt like my own well-being should also count. I do have a history of being a little anxious around kids. I love them, but I get easily stressed when I have to be in charge of more than one for an extended period. I also work full-time and often have a very tight schedule, and her kids need a lot of attention. I don't think it's unreasonable to set limits around that. After the wedding, Emily sent me a long message saying that I was selfish and couldn't care less about family. She said she felt abandoned on one of the most important days of her life and that my refusal had ruined the mood for her. My parents also told me I should have just helped out, since babysitting for a few hours isn't the end of the world. I feel really bad that she was upset, but at the same time, I can't shake the feeling that I was right to set boundaries. I didn't refuse to help entirely. She has had me babysit before, and I have helped her run errands, but expecting me to watch her kids during her wedding events seems extreme. Some friends of mine say I overreacted and that family events require a bit of self-sacrifice. Others agree with me that constantly being on call for her children, especially during events that should be celebratory, isn't fair. I've considered apologizing, but I also don't want to make it seem like I'm agreeing that I was wrong for maintaining my limits. I haven't spoken to Emily since the wedding, and she hasn't reached out beyond that message. I really do want to have a relationship with her and her kids, but I don't want to be treated as if my boundaries are unreasonable or that I'm a bad sister for refusing to babysit at an event like her wedding. AITA for refusing to babysit my sister's kids during her wedding events. Even though it upset her and my parents think I should have helped out. Character count, 6,254 if you want. I can write another variation that's even more dramatic and emotionally charged, similar to the top viral AITA posts that get thousands of comments. That one could hit closer to the 7,000 character max with more twists and family tension. Do you want me to do that next? AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé stay at my house after he embarrassed me in front of my friends. I, 29F, have a younger sister, Emily, 25F, who recently got engaged to her long-term boyfriend, Tom, 27M. Emily and I have always been close, and I've always been supportive of her relationships, even when I didn't get along with her partners. Tom, however, has been a bit of a challenge. I try to keep an open mind, but there have been a few red flags. He's loud, brash, and tends to make crude jokes, which I can tolerate in small doses, but it's just not my vibe. Emily, of course, adores him, so I've tried to be polite and civil. The other weekend, I hosted a dinner at my place for a few friends. I don't usually have big gatherings, but it was a casual get-together for my closest group. I specifically didn't invite Emily or Tom because I wanted a relaxed night with my friends without worrying about dynamics. However, Emily insisted that Tom should come, claiming he wanted to meet my friends and that it would be fun for everyone. I politely told her it was just a small gathering of people I rarely see, so it wouldn't really work. She seemed disappointed, but didn't push it. Fast forward 2 nights ago, I come home from work, exhausted, and find Tom sitting on my couch. Emily is with him, and they act as though they were invited. I was taken aback. I immediately asked why they were there, and Emily said she assumed it was fine since it was my usual hangout space, and that Tom really wanted to meet my friends. I explained that I didn't plan for them to be there and that I needed space tonight. Tom laughed and said, "Come on, it's just a chill night. Don't be uptight." I told him politely to leave, but he refused and insisted on staying just for a bit. Eventually, my friends arrived, and things got awkward immediately. Tom started telling personal stories about Emily and me that I had shared in confidence, including some embarrassing moments from our childhood and some adult misadventures that were not appropriate for a casual dinner conversation. My friends were laughing awkwardly, and I could feel my face turning red. I asked him to stop, and he brushed it off, saying it was all in good fun. Emily didn't intervene until I asked her to, but she only half-heartedly told him to tone it down. The night ended with me feeling humiliated, and my friends left earlier than planned because Tom kept interrupting conversations and making crude jokes. Since then, I've been in a conflict with Emily and Tom. Emily keeps texting me, saying I overreacted and that I should have let him be part of the fun. Tom actually called me yesterday, telling me I was too controlling and that he was just trying to be friendly. At this point, I've told Emily that I don't want Tom in my home until he learns to respect boundaries, which has caused a huge argument. Emily says I'm being unreasonable and that I need to accept him as part of the family. Tom has also made comments to mutual friends about me being unwelcoming and cold, which is frustrating because my friends witnessed the situation and understand exactly what happened. I feel torn because I love my sister and I understand that she wants to include her fiancé in family events. But I also feel like my home is my sanctuary, and I have the right to refuse someone who has already humiliated me. Emily thinks I'm being too harsh and that I should forgive and forget, but I'm worried if I let this slide, he'll continue to cross boundaries. I don't want to ruin my relationship with Emily, but I also don't want to feel unsafe or disrespected in my own space. AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé stay at my house after he embarrassed me in front of my friends? AITA for refusing to include my younger sister in my wedding because of her recent behavior, even though it's causing a family feud? I, 32F, am engaged to my fiancé, Tom, 35M, and we've been planning our wedding for about a year now. Most of the planning has been going smoothly, but recently I've hit a major roadblock with my family, specifically my younger sister, Emily, 27F. I'm really conflicted about whether I'm in the wrong here, and that's why I'm reaching out. A little background on our relationship. Emily and I were very close growing up, but over the last few years, things have become strained. She's always been very opinionated and controlling, which I mostly ignored when it was just about small things, but over the past 2 years, her behavior has escalated. She has a habit of involving herself in situations that don't concern her, offering unsolicited advice, and then getting angry when her input isn't followed. Tom has noticed this too, and we've both had some tense interactions with her during family events. The biggest issue started earlier this year when we got engaged. Emily found out about the engagement before I officially announced it on social media, and she confronted me angrily, accusing me of trying to steal her thunder. She said I should have waited a month because it was close to her birthday and she wanted her life milestones to feel special first. I tried to explain that engagements aren't about anyone else, but she was adamant that I had hurt her feelings and ruined her year. Fast forward to the wedding planning. Emily has been making more frequent, controlling suggestions about everything from the guest list to the decorations. She insisted that certain people should be invited, including friends I barely know, that the color scheme I picked was offensive, and that my seating arrangement was a disaster waiting to happen. Every time I politely declined her suggestions, she would throw a fit and claim I was ignoring her feelings. The breaking point happened about 2 months ago. Tom and I had booked our venue and paid the deposit, and we decided to finalize the guest list. I made a list of immediate family, close friends, and a few distant relatives. When I showed Emily the list, she flipped. She said I was excluding her friends and disrespecting her by not giving her a bigger role. I tried to explain that it's our wedding, not hers, and that I was including all the people who are important to both of us, but she wouldn't listen. Then came a last straw. Emily publicly criticized our wedding website on social media, posting comments about the ugly fonts and poor color choices and insinuating that Tom and I weren't capable of planning a proper wedding. She tagged some of our mutual friends, which caused minor drama and made Tom extremely upset. I told her I couldn't continue to deal with this behavior and that I needed her to respect our boundaries. She responded by saying I was overreacting and that family should always be involved in life's big moments. After discussing it with Tom, we made a very difficult decision. We're not going to give Emily a formal role in the wedding, and we've limited her involvement to being a guest. This includes excluding her from things like the bridal party, the ceremony readings, and any pre-wedding events like the rehearsal dinner. We've made it clear that we still want her to attend and celebrate with us, but we aren't going to cater to her controlling behavior. When I told Emily this, she completely lost it. She cried, screamed, and accused me of ruining our sister bond forever and being selfish. She has since started calling other family members and telling them that I am ostracizing her and that Tom and I are manipulating the wedding for our own selfish needs. Some family members have expressed support, while others are upset with me for not compromising and breaking Emily's heart. My parents are trying to stay neutral, but even they have said they're disappointed because they wish we could all just get along. Now, the wedding is in 3 weeks, and the tension is unbearable. Emily has sent me long, guilt-tripping texts about how I am choosing Tom over family, and that she can't believe I would hurt her this way. She's also threatened to not attend unless she's given a bigger role, which I absolutely cannot agree to at this point. Tom supports me 100%, and most of our friends think we're doing the right thing by setting boundaries. But some of my extended family members are pressuring me, saying that refusing Emily's demands is petty and that I should just let her have what she wants to avoid drama. The stress has been affecting my sleep and my ability to enjoy the wedding planning, and I feel like I'm walking a fine line between doing what's best for my mental health and maintaining family relationships. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to give my younger sister a formal role in my wedding because of her recent controlling and disruptive behavior. Even though it's causing a family feud, I genuinely don't want to hurt her, but I also cannot allow her behavior to dictate how my wedding goes. I'm looking for honest opinions here, because at this point, I feel like I might be too close to the situation to see clearly. I want to do what's right for me and Tom, but I also don't want to be remembered as the sister who alienated her sibling over a wedding. AITA for refusing to help my brother with his wedding because of his fiancé's behavior. So, this is going to be a long one, and I'll try to include all the relevant details. I, 28F, have a younger brother, Jake, 25M. We've always been close, but over the past year, things have gotten tense. Jake recently got engaged to his fiancée, Emily, 27F. I'll admit, when I first met her, I liked her. She seemed smart, funny, and she and Jake clearly made each other happy. But as the months have gone by, she's shown some behavior that I find really concerning, and it's caused a lot of friction between us. Jake and Emily got engaged about 8 months ago. They've been planning their wedding ever since, and I was initially excited to help. I've always been the planner in our family, organizing events, helping with logistics, that sort of thing. But almost immediately, Emily started making things difficult. For example, when it came to my role in the wedding, she constantly pushed back. I offered to help with finding vendors, making the guest list manageable, and even helping with seating arrangements. Emily responded in a very dismissive way every single time. She would say things like, "I think I've got it under control," or "Thanks, but I want to handle it my way," which I respected at first. But it started to feel like she was intentionally keeping me out of the planning. The first major incident happened around the wedding dress selection. I offered to accompany Jake and Emily to the bridal shop. Emily said she didn't want me there because she wanted a private experience with her mom and friends. I brushed it off, thinking maybe she was just shy. Then the engagement party came, and things got worse. Emily spent the entire time criticizing how I was helping, whether it was how I greeted guests, how I helped with decorations, or even my choice of outfit. Nothing was ever good enough, and she made it clear that she didn't want me involved in any aspect of the wedding. Then came the big argument. About 3 months ago, Jake asked me to help with invitations. I was excited to help and went over a few designs with him. Emily somehow found out and blew up. She accused me of trying to take over the wedding and of undermining her decisions. She said, "It's my wedding too, and I don't need you to control everything." I tried to explain that I was just offering support and wasn't trying to control anything, but she refused to listen. From that moment on, she has been extremely hostile toward me, and Jake has started to bend to her demands, even when it's unreasonable. Things escalated further when Jake and Emily asked me to host a bridal shower at my house. I agreed, thinking maybe this could be an olive branch. I spent weeks planning, shopping, and organizing everything to make it special. When Emily arrived, she immediately started criticizing the decorations, the food, the seating arrangements, literally everything. By the end of the day, she was in tears, saying, "This isn't what I wanted," and I was left feeling frustrated and hurt. Jake tried to mediate, but I ended up storming out before the party was over. Emily told him I had ruined the day, which led to a huge fight between them. I didn't get involved after that. Fast forward to now. The wedding is in 2 months. Jake asked me to help coordinate seating and handle day of logistics. I told him I couldn't, given how Emily has treated me. I explained calmly that I didn't feel comfortable putting in the effort when she has consistently disrespected me and that it was affecting my mental health. Jake got upset and accused me of throwing away our sibling bond and not supporting him during the most important time of his life. Emily, predictably, is delighted that I'm stepping back because now she doesn't have to deal with me at all. Jake and I have since been arguing almost daily. He says I'm being unreasonable and that I need to put my feelings aside for his wedding. I argue that it's not just about feelings, it's about respect. I feel like Emily has made it clear that she doesn't want me involved, and I don't want to be humiliated or criticized constantly in front of family and friends. I've offered other ways to help, like making a personal gift, writing a speech, or helping in small behind-the-scenes ways. But he keeps pushing for me to take on bigger responsibilities. Here's the kicker. Our parents are getting involved. They're upset that I'm not helping, and they're pressuring me to just get over it for Jake's sake. I feel caught in the middle. I love my brother, and I don't want to ruin his wedding, but I also don't want to be treated like an unwelcome guest in my own family. I've tried talking to Jake multiple times, explaining that my decision isn't about him, but about how Emily has treated me. But he either doesn't understand or refuses to acknowledge it. Meanwhile, Emily keeps texting me passive-aggressive messages like, "I'm sure you'll be busy that day, huh?" Or, "Thanks for nothing." It's reached the point where I'm seriously questioning whether attending the wedding at all is worth it if I'm going to be treated like this. So, Reddit, here's where I stand. I love my brother, but I cannot tolerate the way Emily has disrespected me over the past 8 months. I want to support him, but I also need to protect myself. AITA for refusing to help with his wedding? I should add that I've considered compromise, like helping in very minor ways or only taking care of specific tasks. But Emily seems determined to make me feel unwelcome no matter what. I feel like no matter what I do, it will be interpreted as control or interference, which I can't keep living through. So yeah, that's where I'm at. I want to do right by my brother, but I also can't be part of a wedding where I'm treated like the enemy. AITA for refusing to lend my sister money after she got herself into financial trouble because of a gambling habit. So I, 28F, have always been the responsible one in my family. I've been working in a corporate job for about 6 years now and have managed to save a decent amount. I have my apartment, a small emergency fund, and a retirement plan I'm diligently contributing to. My sister, Clara, 26F, is very different. She's charming, funny, and honestly very talented in many ways. But she has a long history of making impulsive decisions, particularly financially. Recently, things came to a head. About 3 months ago, Clara started dating this guy, Tom, who I will admit seemed nice at first. But very quickly, he introduced her to online gambling, claiming it was just fun and harmless. I should have seen the red flags immediately, but Clara was smitten, so I tried to stay out of it while offering general advice about responsible spending. Of course, that didn't go far because, as I later learned, she quickly got hooked and was gambling away hundreds, then thousands of dollars a week. Last week, Clara called me, absolutely panicked, saying she owed over $7,000 to various online gambling platforms and didn't know what to do. Her rent was due, and she couldn't pay it. nor could she cover her utilities. She begged me to help her out this one time so she could get back on her feet. My immediate reaction was shock and concern, not just about her finances, but about her mental state. I asked her if she had thought about getting help for her gambling, and she brushed it off, insisting she just needed me to lend her the money, and then she'd pay me back as soon as possible. I asked how she planned to pay me back, and she admitted she didn't have a plan, but she swore she would figure it out. She also implied that if I didn't help, our relationship might be strained because families should always support each other. Now, I know some people might say that family should help, and I get that sentiment, but my instinct was immediately to refuse. I have seen Clara go through these kinds of financial meltdowns before, and it usually ends with her in even more trouble later. Lending her money would only delay the consequences and, frankly, enable her behavior. I told her I couldn't lend her $7,000. I explained that she needed to take responsibility for her choices, that she could contact a financial counselor or even look into a temporary loan from a bank if she could realistically repay it, but I wasn't going to bail her out. Clara cried on the phone and said I was being cold and selfish. She accused me of caring more about my money than about her well-being. She even said that Tom would help her if I wouldn't, but that he doesn't have my level of income, which made me realize that she might have been relying on him partially for this financial safety net too. I held firm, but it was a really difficult conversation because I could hear her desperation and fear, and I love my sister. The aftermath has been tense. Clara hasn't spoken to me since that phone call. Our parents, who I had informed about the situation, have been calling me, telling me I should reconsider because it's family, and she's in trouble. I explained that helping her in this way could make the situation worse, and that she needed to face the consequences of her choices, but they aren't happy. They say I am being unsympathetic, and that Clara is likely to resent me for life. I tried to reach out again a few days ago to offer support in a different form, helping her create a budget, research gambling counseling, and even assisting with job search strategies, but she refused all help and said she just wanted the money. I haven't heard from her since. I honestly feel conflicted. On one hand, I don't want to abandon my sister or make her feel unsupported. On the other hand, I genuinely believe that lending her $7,000 would be irresponsible and harmful for both of us. I also worry that giving her money would reinforce her pattern of making poor financial decisions without accountability. I have set boundaries and try to find alternative ways to support her, but I feel like the emotional backlash is significant. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to lend my sister money after she got herself into financial trouble due to gambling. Additional context, Clara has been in debt before for things like credit card overspending, and our parents bailed her out a couple of times when she was younger. My relationship with my sister has otherwise been loving and supportive. We used to be very close. I have my own financial goals, including buying a house next year, which would be severely impacted if I loaned her the money. I'm not ruling out helping her in other ways, but I refuse to be the source of the bailout that could perpetuate a dangerous cycle. I'm bracing myself for the fallout, but I wanted an honest perspective. AIDA here. Hey friends, if you're enjoying the content, don't forget to hit the like button and share your thoughts in the comments. We genuinely want to know what you enjoy and what we can improve. What did you think of the video? Are there any topics you'd like to see in future uploads? Your feedback helps us get better every day. Thanks for sticking with us. AITA for refusing to host my younger sister's wedding at my house after she insisted on excluding my husband from all planning discussions. I, 34F, have always been close to my younger sister, Lily, 29F, but lately things have gotten really tense, and I can't help but feel like I'm being painted as the villain in our family. I need an outside perspective because I genuinely don't know if I'm overreacting. A little background. My husband, Dan, 36M, and I bought a large house about 3 years ago. We live in a nice suburb with a big backyard that is perfect for gatherings, which is why I initially thought it would be a great idea to host Lily's wedding there. Lily and her fiancé, Tom, 30M, have been engaged for about a year, and I've been excited to help. I offer my house because our backyard has a beautiful garden and enough space for a decent-sized ceremony and reception. I was happy to contribute, and I figured it would save them money since weddings are expensive. The problem started when Lily began making plans. From the beginning, she insisted that Dan not be involved in any planning meetings, discussions about guests, vendors, or even decoration ideas. I thought it was odd, but I assumed maybe she wanted to manage her wedding with only me, since she knows I've always been the hands-on sister. I tried to respect her wishes and told Dan he could help in small, practical ways at home, but not with the planning. At first, I thought it was manageable, but then the rules kept expanding. She started asking for more and more adjustments. For example, she wanted me to get a massive inflatable arch for the ceremony. I told her that wasn't feasible because it might damage the lawn and would require professional help to install. She got frustrated and said that Dan would have been able to figure it out, which felt like a direct jab at him. Then she insisted that all floral arrangements be hand-picked from a specific local market. That's fine, but the timing was such that we would have had to dedicate an entire weekend just for flowers. I mentioned that Dan could help with transportation and logistics, but she again said no, he couldn't be involved. The breaking point came last week. She asked if we could install an elaborate lighting system in the backyard. She said it needed to be creative, Instagram-worthy, and very professional-looking. I told her that it would take a lot of technical knowledge and probably require a professional electrician. I also said that Dan has a background in electronics and could easily handle it, but she flatly refused, insisting that he not touch anything. She also said that if I wanted my husband at the wedding at all, he had to stay completely in the background and not speak to anyone helping with setup. I found this request extremely controlling and, honestly, insulting. I tried to reason with her, saying that Dan has always been supportive and capable, and that I couldn't imagine him being treated like he's invisible in our own house during what is supposed to be a happy family event. After that conversation, I told Lily that I couldn't host the wedding if Dan wasn't allowed to be involved in the planning or setup. I offered alternative options like helping find a venue or even assisting with decorations and logistics, but only if we could both be involved. She immediately got defensive, accused me of trying to make everything about my husband, and said that maybe it would be better if she found a different venue. At this point, I've told her I won't host the wedding, which has led to a huge argument between us. Our parents are upset with me, saying that I'm being inflexible and that it's my responsibility to sacrifice a little for my sister's big day. Lily, on the other hand, claims I'm overreacting and that I'm letting my husband control my decisions, implying that I should just agree to her terms to keep the peace. I feel like both sides are pressuring me unfairly. I should also note that this isn't the first time Lily has tried to exclude Dan from family matters. She's always been very independent and sometimes territorial about family events, but it's never gone this far before. I've tried to set boundaries, but it seems like every time I do, she interprets it as me siding with Dan against her. Now, my parents are pushing me to apologize to Lily and just let Dan stay out of it, but I feel like that would be unfair to both Dan and me. I also feel hurt because this was supposed to be a special moment where we could all come together as a family, but it's turning into a power struggle. Dan is supportive, telling me that I should not compromise my boundaries, but I can see why my parents think I'm being difficult. I don't want to lose my relationship with my sister, and I don't want to create drama with my family. But I also feel like hosting a wedding under these conditions would be humiliating and disrespectful to my husband. I've tried explaining that having both of us involved doesn't mean taking over her wedding. It just means working together as family. She's not listening, and now I feel trapped in a situation where saying yes would make me miserable, but saying no has made me the bad sister. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to host my sister's wedding at my house because she won't allow my husband to participate in planning or setup. AITA for refusing to take care of my sister's children because she needs a break. This is going to be a long one, so bear with me. I, 32F, have a younger sister, Emma, 27F, who has 2 kids, ages 5 and 3. I've always been close with Emma, but lately things have been tense. My parents are both deceased, so I've kind of taken on the family anchor role by default. I've always been very responsible and organized, whereas Emma has a much more laid-back, spontaneous personality, which is great for her life, but doesn't mix well with mine when it comes to parenting responsibilities. Here's the situation. Emma recently went through a rough patch at work. Her hours got cut, and she's been stressed and exhausted. I totally understand that. But the thing is, she has started asking me to take care of her kids basically every weekend because she needs a break. At first, I didn't mind helping out occasionally. Everyone needs a breather. But it's become a pattern that I honestly can't keep up with. For context, I have a demanding job as a project manager at a tech company. My schedule is flexible but intense. I often work weekends to finish projects or prep for the week. I also have my own social life, personal projects, and yes, sometimes I just want to rest without having kids underfoot. I've always been good with kids. I love them, but full weekends every other week is not something I can sustain. So, last month she asked me if I could watch her kid from Friday evening until Sunday night because she wanted to go on a mental health retreat with a friend. I was exhausted and had a huge project deadline on Monday, so I said no. She got visibly upset but didn't argue. Then, the next weekend, she asked again. Same story. I said I couldn't. And this is when things started escalating. Emma called me late at night, crying, saying she felt abandoned and that I was choosing work over family. I tried to explain that it wasn't personal, that I was just swamped with responsibilities and needed to set boundaries. She said I was selfish and that family should come first. After that, she started guilt-tripping me in more subtle ways. Every time I visit, she makes comments about how tired she is, how she wishes someone would help her more, how I don't understand what it's like to have kids. My partner, 35M, also says I'm not obligated to babysit, but Emma has managed to make me feel like the bad sister in front of everyone. My friends have noticed too. They keep asking if I'm okay because Emma has been venting to them, painting me as the heartless sibling. The breaking point came last weekend. Emma announced that she had signed up for a 2-day workshop across town and wanted me to take care of the kids again. I told her flat out, I can't do it. I have plans and responsibilities, and you need to find another solution. She started yelling, accusing me of being manipulative and cruel, and stormed out. My partner asked if I'd handled it the wrong way, but honestly, I was firm but polite. I didn't scream, threaten, or insult her. I simply said no. After that, our relationship went icy. She hasn't spoken to me much, and when she does, it's passive-aggressive. She's been posting on social media about family not supporting each other, and I know exactly who she's talking about. I feel torn. I love my sister, and I want her to have a life outside of parenting, but I also feel completely justified in refusing to take on responsibilities that would compromise my own work and mental health. I've considered compromise, like only helping for a few hours or on specific dates, but Emma has always wanted full weekends, saying that half help doesn't count, and that partial support is just teasing the kids. My partner thinks I'm being reasonable and setting necessary boundaries, but part of me feels guilty because I don't want my niece and nephew to think I don't care about them. So Reddit, am I the asshole for refusing to watch my sister's kids whenever she wants simply because she says she needs a break? Or am I justified in putting my own responsibilities and mental health first? I've tried to talk to her calmly, but she interprets anything less than total availability as abandonment. I love her, but I don't know how to navigate this without completely burning bridges. Character count, 6,537 if you want. I can also craft a part 2 version that has even more emotional complexity, twists with family dynamics, and a dramatic confrontation. Perfect for hitting that highly upvoted Reddit vibe. Do you want me to do that? AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé move in with us before our wedding. I, 28F, am getting married in 6 months to my fiancé, Daniel, 30M. We've been together for 4 years, and our relationship has been mostly smooth, aside from the usual disagreements. My sister, Emily, 26F, recently got engaged to her boyfriend of 2 years, Mark, 27M. Emily and I have always been close, but she can be very impulsive and sometimes disregards other people's boundaries. A few weeks ago, Emily came over unannounced with Mark and started talking about how he needed a place to stay because his apartment is getting fumigated due to a bedbug problem. She asked if it would be okay for him to stay with me and Daniel for a few days. I told her politely that it wasn't convenient since we were in the middle of wedding planning and the house is already crowded with decorations, supplies, and my in-laws coming to visit soon. Emily insisted, saying that it was just for a couple of days, and she would make it worth my while. I didn't feel comfortable with it and said no. She left upset, but didn't argue much at that point. A week later, Emily texted me saying that Mark's apartment issue was dragging on longer than expected and that he would need to stay with us for a couple of weeks. She said she understood if it was inconvenient, but then added, "I'm really stressed, and Daniel and I both know you'll say yes because you care about me." I was shocked. I felt like she was trying to guilt me into letting her fiancé essentially move into our house without asking properly. I called Daniel to discuss it. He agreed with me that it wasn't a good idea, especially so close to the wedding. We have a small house, and his staying over for 2 weeks would disrupt our entire routine. I told Emily that we couldn't accommodate Mark for that long and offered to help her find a temporary rental or a hotel that might be affordable. She got very upset over text, accusing me of being selfish and not being family-oriented. I didn't respond immediately because I wanted to cool down. The next day, she sent me a long message listing all the ways she's helped me in the past, implying that I owe her this favor. She also said that Daniel should be more understanding since he's not really her family, even though we've all spent holidays together for years. The situation escalated when she came by our house unexpectedly while Daniel and I were out. She knocked on the door and left a note saying, "We came by to see if you change your mind. We understand if you can't host me, but Mark really needs help. Please reconsider." At this point, I was furious. I told Daniel we needed to set firm boundaries. We sent her a message stating that while we love her, we cannot host Mark, and it is unfair of her to pressure us, especially so close to the wedding. We also said that if she continues to push this, we would have to limit visits until the wedding is over, because we need our home to feel like our space. Emily blew up on social media, posting vague complaints about me and how my sister won't even help her fiancé in a time of need. Some mutual friends have started asking me why I'm being so rigid, which has added to the stress. Daniel has been supportive, but he is also getting frustrated because Emily is now hinting that we don't care about her happiness or her relationship. A few days ago, Emily texted me again, asking if I could at least let Mark stay for the weekend. I told her no. She called me and yelled, saying I'm choosing a house over family, and that I've always been selfish. I didn't engage and ended the call. Now I'm feeling guilty because I don't want to damage my relationship with Emily, especially before our wedding, but at the same time, I really think she's crossing a boundary. I also know that letting Mark stay here, even for a weekend, would likely turn into more requests. I'm worried that if we bend once, she'll expect more and more, and it could turn into an ongoing arrangement. Daniel thinks I'm completely justified, but I feel like maybe I'm being too harsh since Emily is in a stressful situation and I do want to support her. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé stay with us, even for a weekend, when his apartment is being fumigated. I feel like I'm trying to protect my home and wedding plans, but I also worry that I'm coming across as uncaring or selfish. Character count, 6,412 if you want. I can also craft an even longer, more dramatic version that hits closer to 7,000 characters and includes extra twists and tension like the top viral AITA stories. It would make the story feel even more authentic and binge-worthy. Do you want me to do that? AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé have a say in how I raise my child. I, 32F, have a 6-year-old daughter, Emma, and I've been a single mom since she was born. My sister, Lisa, 30F, has always been very involved in our family life. She's engaged to Tom, 33M, who I'll admit I barely know, though I've met him a handful of times at family gatherings. Emma loves Lisa, and I like that she has a close bond with her aunt, so we all spend a fair amount of time together. The problem started a few months ago. Tom, who has been in the picture for about 2 years, started making comments about how I should handle certain situations differently with Emma. The first time it really bothered me was at my daughter's dance recital. Tom loudly criticized the way I applauded Emma's performance, saying I was being too restrained and that I should make her feel like she actually accomplished something. I laughed it off at the time, thinking he was just overenthusiastic, but the comments kept coming. Then it got worse. Tom started giving unsolicited advice on parenting choices, everything from nutrition to discipline to extracurriculars. He told me Emma watches too much TV, that I dress her in boring clothes, and that I was overly strict for making her do her homework before screen time. Lisa, to be fair, has occasionally tried to defuse the situation by telling Tom to back off, but she also sometimes agrees with him, which confuses Emma and me. The breaking point came last week. I was hosting a small birthday party for Emma at our home. Lisa and Tom came over with a few of their friends. Tom kept suggesting fun alternatives for activities I had planned, which I ignored at first. But then he started telling Emma directly that she should do things his way, not mine. He even tried to rearrange the snacks I had prepared for allergies and preferences I knew Emma had. I finally snapped and told him he had no right to interfere and that he needed to leave if he couldn't respect my parenting choices. Lisa tried to intervene and calm me down, but I was already shaking with anger. Tom left, and Lisa was visibly upset. She said I was overreacting and that I should be more open to suggestions from someone who supposedly cares about Emma. I reminded her that Tom is her fiancé, not my daughter's parent, and that ultimately Emma lives with me and I make the rules. She didn't argue much in the moment, but I could feel tension growing. Since then, Lisa has been passive-aggressive. She tells me I need to be more flexible and sometimes glares when I mention things about Emma that go against Tom's opinions. Emma seems confused too because she loves Tom and wants everyone to get along, but she's also seen me frustrated and angry. A few days ago, she asked why Tom always tries to tell me what to do, which broke my heart. I explained that sometimes adults make mistakes and that her mom's job is to decide what's best for her, but I could tell she didn't fully understand. I reached out to Tom to set boundaries. I said he's welcome to offer suggestions if I ask, but he cannot undermine my parenting or tell Emma what to do. He texted back saying I was controlling and that I should let him be part of the family. I blocked him after that because I felt like arguing further would only escalate things. Lisa has since texted me that I need to reconsider my attitude or risk causing a permanent rift in the family. I feel like I'm trapped between protecting my daughter and maintaining family peace. I have always been careful to include Lisa in our lives, and I love her, but I don't feel like Tom has the right to interfere in how I raise Emma. I also feel like Lisa isn't fully backing me up, which hurts. I've been thinking about limiting visits or having them only at neutral locations, but that could cause even more tension. I'm starting to wonder if I'm being unreasonable. Am I actually overreacting by refusing to let Tom dictate how I parent? Should I try harder to accommodate him, even if I feel it's inappropriate, to keep the family from fracturing? So, AITA for standing my ground with Tom, even if it upsets Lisa and potentially puts strain on our family relationships? AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her fiancé's behavior and risking a huge family feud? I, 28F, have always been close with my younger sister, Emma, 25F. We grew up in a fairly tight-knit family, and even as adults, we've remained close, texting almost daily, sharing life updates, venting about work, the usual. Emma started dating her now fiancé, Mark, 27M, about 2 years ago. From the beginning, I had some concerns about him, but I tried to keep an open mind because I wanted my sister to be happy. At first, things seemed normal enough. Mark was charming, polite, and seemed to genuinely care about Emma. But as time went on, I noticed some patterns that started to make me uneasy. He would make offhand comments about people in our family, things that I considered rude or condescending, and laugh them off like it was a joke. For example, he once told my mom that she really shouldn't be trying to cook like that in 2023. It's embarrassing, and then smirked at her reaction. My parents laughed it off awkwardly, but I could tell they were hurt. I also started noticing small manipulations. When Emma made decisions about her job or social life, Mark would subtly undermine her, often framing it as concern for her. Once, Emma was considering taking a promotion at work, and Mark told her she probably wouldn't handle it well and suggested she stay in her current role because it was safer. Emma didn't want to upset him, so she didn't take the promotion, though she later admitted to me that she regretted it. I tried to bring it up gently, but she brushed it off, saying I was overreacting. Fast forward to last year, when they got engaged. This is when things started escalating. Mark started inviting his friends and family to Emma's apartment for what he called friendly gatherings, but he made it clear that my sister and I were supposed to follow his rules about cleaning, cooking, and hosting. One night, he invited about 15 people over, and Emma and I had spent hours preparing snacks and drinks. When his friends criticized the setup or made fun of some of the food, Mark just laughed and didn't defend us. Emma was upset, and I tried to comfort her, but I started realizing that Mark might actually enjoy seeing her uncomfortable. The final straw, for me, happened a few months ago. We were having dinner at my parents' house, and Mark started making a scene over something trivial, a minor comment my dad made about a TV show. He raised his voice, rolled his eyes, and stormed out, leaving Emma to apologize for his mood. That night, he also texted Emma demanding that she cancel a weekend trip she had planned with me, because it would be boring for him. It felt controlling, and I tried to tell Emma that his behavior was unhealthy. She said she knew he could be difficult, but that he loved her and she could handle him. I tried to let it go, thinking maybe I was just biased. Now we're in the middle of wedding planning, and things have gotten worse. Mark has started asking my parents to pay for parts of the wedding and insisting that only his friends' opinions matter for certain decisions. He's also made it clear he doesn't want me involved in planning, despite the fact that I've been helping Emma for the past year with everything from choosing dresses to coordinating vendors. Emma, understandably, wants to avoid conflict, so she hasn't confronted him. Recently, there was a big argument during a wedding meeting. Mark told Emma she shouldn't let her family influence her choices, especially her sister, and suggested I was too dramatic and overly involved. He implied that my presence at the wedding would make things uncomfortable for everyone, including Emma. I tried talking to Emma calmly about my concerns, saying that I wasn't trying to cause drama, but that I couldn't be in a situation where her fiancé openly disrespected me and, more importantly, her. She begged me to just attend for the sake of family harmony, saying everyone else would be upset if I didn't. I told her I couldn't do it. I explained that attending would feel like I was endorsing Mark's behavior and that I couldn't pretend to be okay with him treating my sister that way. She cried and said I was choosing him over her family, and my parents call me selfish. My mom said, "We'll respect your choice, but you're making a mistake that could hurt your relationship with Emma forever." My dad was quieter, but disappointed. I've received messages from cousins and friends saying I should just grin and bear it, because it's only one day, and I feel torn. I love my sister, and I don't want to lose her, but I also feel strongly that Mark's behavior crosses a line, and I can't just ignore it. I've tried to support Emma without putting myself in harm's way, but now it feels like my refusal to attend is being framed as me being the villain. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because I don't want to condone her fiancé's toxic behavior. I don't want this to turn into a family feud, but I also don't want to compromise my own boundaries and mental health just to appease everyone. I've offered to help in ways that don't involve being around him, like organizing a gift, helping with decorations remotely, or hosting pre-wedding gatherings, but they say it's not the same. I'm conflicted because part of me thinks I'm being overly protective and maybe even judgmental, but another part of me feels like I'm finally standing up for my own principles. I just don't know how to navigate this without damaging my relationship with Emma permanently. Has anyone been in a similar situation where attending an event meant endorsing someone's behavior you fundamentally disagreed with? How did you handle it without burning bridges? AITA for refusing to let my sister's boyfriend stay at my house for a week, even though he claims he's family now. I, 32F, live alone in a small apartment in a city that's just expensive enough to make roommates unbearable. My sister, Laura, 28F, has been dating her boyfriend, Derek, 30M, for about a year. From the start, Derek was always a little overbearing with boundaries. He wanted to be around Laura all the time, expected her to drop plans for him, and often made offhand comments about how our family should be more welcoming. At first, I brushed it off because Laura seemed happy. But over time, it became clear Derek had this weird sense that the world should bend around him. About a month ago, Laura called me, sounding frazzled. Derek had been having some issues at his place. He and his roommate apparently got into a fight over a shared utility bill, and he asked if he could crash at someone's place until he got things sorted. Laura immediately thought of me. I try to be polite but honest. I work long hours, have a very tight routine, and my apartment is small. I told her I couldn't host him. I suggested some affordable short-term rentals and even offered to help him find a hostel if needed. Laura seemed annoyed, but said she understood. Fast forward 2 weeks, Laura calls me again. This time, Derek apparently broke up with his roommate and doesn't have anywhere to go for a week because his new roommate won't move in until next Saturday. Laura begged me again, saying Derek really feels like part of the family now and that I should let him stay with me. She kept emphasizing how he's family and that I wouldn't say no to any other family member. I paused because I didn't want to immediately say no in a way that would upset her, but the truth is, I just couldn't handle having another adult living in my tiny apartment for an entire week. It's not just the space. Derek has a very particular way of doing things. He eats weird hours, is loud when he cooks, leaves dishes for days, and smokes inside, even though I asked him not to in the past when he visited. I told Laura, firmly but gently, that I couldn't host him. I offered to pay for a cheap Airbnb for the week, and I could help him move in there myself, but I was not opening my home. Laura was upset and told me I was being selfish and family shouldn't act like this. Derek apparently overheard the call and called me directly, which I thought was odd. He said, "I've been with Laura for a year. I'm practically family. This isn't fair." I explained my reasons calmly. My work schedule, the apartment size, and the fact that I have health issues that make sharing my space stressful. He didn't take it well. He said, "So, your blood family is less important than your comfort? That's ridiculous." After that, I didn't speak to them for a few days. Then Laura texted me again, saying Derek had found a place to stay, but she was still hurt and that I could have made this work if I cared. I tried to explain my boundaries again, but she just stopped responding. Here's the part that's confusing me. Our parents got involved. I didn't mention anything to them, but apparently Laura called them complaining. My mom called me and said, "You should have let him stay. He's practically family now," and Laura is very upset. I told her politely that I respect Laura's relationship, but I have every right to control my own living space and can't host someone I don't feel comfortable with, even for a week. My mom sighed and said, "I guess you're just rigid like that." Now I'm wondering, am I the asshole here? I feel like people are conflating Derek being close to Laura with being close to me. I've spent time with him, but I don't feel obligated to let him live in my home. My boundaries feel reasonable to me, but apparently, telling someone who calls himself family that he can't stay is unforgivable in my family's eyes. To add context, I have let other family members stay before, but only for a night or two, never a full week. And those situations were always temporary emergencies, not because someone felt entitled. I'm worried that if I give in now, I'll set a precedent where Derek and maybe other extended family think my apartment is always available. I like my sister and care about her, but my apartment is my sanctuary. I've been getting mixed messages from mutual friends. Some say I'm completely justified. Others say I should have just put up with it for a week for the sake of family harmony. But I genuinely feel like a week in a tiny space with someone I'm not comfortable around would have been miserable for everyone. So Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my sister's boyfriend stay at my apartment for a week, even though he claims he's family now. AITA for refusing to let my sister stay with me after she tried to sabotage my career. So this is going to be long, but I'll try to be as clear as possible. I, 32F, work in marketing for a mid-sized tech company, and I've been climbing the ladder pretty steadily over the past few years. I live in a decent apartment in the city, I have a solid friend group, and generally, life is good. My sister, Megan, 28F, has always been a little tricky. She's incredibly charming, but also very manipulative. She has a habit of telling half-truths and exaggerating things to get attention, and honestly, I've grown used to just rolling my eyes at it. About 6 months ago, I was up for a promotion at work. This would be a big step for me, both in terms of title and responsibility. I had been working on a major campaign that had gone really well, and I was confident in my chances. I casually mentioned it to Megan over the phone, and she acted supportive at the time. A couple of weeks later, I found out through my manager that someone had called in to complain about me. The complaint was absurd and completely fabricated, alleging that I had stolen ideas from a colleague and been manipulative with the team. I was floored. I know I have a strong professional reputation, and I had never done anything like that. I immediately suspected Megan because she's the only person outside of work who seemed like she could even remotely pull something like that. I confronted her, but she denied it, of course, and acted genuinely shocked. Long story short, HR investigated, and thankfully, the truth came out. The complaint was clearly baseless, and I got a formal apology from the company. But the promotion was delayed for months because they wanted to make sure there was no lingering tension. I was furious, and I cut back on all personal communication with Megan. Fast forward to last week. Megan called me and said she was in a bind. She had gotten evicted from her apartment and had nowhere to go. She begged me to let her stay with me just for a couple of weeks. I was instantly skeptical, remembering what happened with the complaint. I told her I needed to think about it. I discussed it with my roommate. We share a 2-bedroom apartment, and she was against it as well. She reminded me that Megan has stayed with us before, and she never left the place in good condition. There were always little lies, borrowed things she never returned, and she tended to borrow money and make excuses about paying it back. When I finally spoke to Megan, I told her no. I explained that I didn't feel comfortable, given our history and the fact that our apartment is small, and I didn't want to risk another situation like what happened with the complaint. Megan immediately got defensive. She accused me of holding grudges, of being cruel, and of being a terrible sister. She said she had nowhere else to go and that I was basically abandoning her when she needed help. I stuck to my decision. She's now calling our family, trying to make them take my side, and painting me as a selfish, heartless sibling. My parents called me, asking if I would reconsider because she truly has nowhere else to go. I explained the situation honestly, mentioning the past complaint and the repeated problems when she stayed with me, but they still seemed conflicted. My dad said I should try to put aside my feelings because she's family. My mom was a bit more understanding, but still thinks I could compromise somehow. I feel like if I let her stay, I'd be setting myself up for more problems. I don't think Megan actually understands boundaries, and I feel like any temporary arrangement would quickly spiral into months of her taking advantage of me and my roommate. On the other hand, I feel awful knowing she's out on the street, and I don't want to be seen as cruel. I'm leaning toward not letting her stay, but I keep second-guessing myself. I did suggest some alternatives, like local shelters and friends she could reach out to, but she refuses those options. I'm torn because, in theory, I want to help my sister, but in practice, I know it would be a disaster. So, AITA for refusing to let my sister stay with me after what she did in the past. Additional context. I have lent Megan money in the past, and she has always been slow or outright refused to pay me back. Megan has a history of creating drama and pitting people against each other in the family. My roommate and I are both very independent and value our privacy highly. I feel like I'm being rational and protecting myself, but the guilt is eating at me, especially with her reaching out to my parents. AITA for ruining my brother's wedding over a seating arrangement? I, 28F, recently had a huge falling out with my family, and it all started at my older brother Jake's wedding last month. This is going to be long, but I feel like I need to give all the context because people keep asking me what happened, and it's honestly one of those situations that snowballed from one seemingly small thing. So, Jake and his now wife, Emily, have always been the golden couple of our family. Perfect grades, perfect jobs, perfect relationship, at least on the surface. I've always been the more, let's say, unconventional sibling. I work in a creative field. I live in a small, slightly messy apartment, and I don't really care for a lot of social niceties. My family often jokes about how I march to my own drum, which is a polite way of saying they think I'm a little reckless. The wedding planning started about 6 months ago. My parents were helping Jake and Emily, and I was mostly on the sidelines because, honestly, I didn't want to deal with the usual passive-aggressive tension. About 3 months before the wedding, my mom called me and said, "Hey, we need to figure out seating arrangements. Jake wants you to sit at the family table." I was a little surprised because my relationship with my family has always been fine, but I guess fine doesn't mean without friction. When I asked who else would be at the family table, my mom listed my siblings, my parents, Jake's grandparents, and Emily's parents. Immediately, I noticed a problem. Emily's parents are known to be extremely critical, almost hostile, toward anyone they think is different or weird. Over the years, they've made thinly veiled comments about my lifestyle, things like my tattoos, my lack of a corporate job, or the fact that I sometimes dye my hair bright colors. I've tried to ignore them, but they've made it clear they don't really see me as family material. So I politely asked my mom if it might be possible to move me to another table, maybe with some of the younger cousins or my friends, just so I could avoid unnecessary conflict. My mom said, "No, Jake insists you're at the family table. He doesn't want any drama." I told her I wasn't trying to create drama, but I also didn't want to be verbally attacked for 4 hours straight. She said she understood, but couldn't do anything. I decided to let it go and just try to grin and bear it. Fast forward to the wedding day. The ceremony went smoothly, everyone looked beautiful, and the reception started. I went to the family table, took my seat, and immediately noticed Emily's mom giving me the kind of look that could freeze lava. I smiled politely, hoping that would be enough. Within 5 minutes, Emily's mom leaned over and said, "So, you're the one who dyes her hair purple? Interesting choice. Do you have a real job, or is this your hobby?" I smiled awkwardly and said I work in graphic design. She scoffed. I tried to let it go. Then Jake's dad, who is usually very protective, started making comments about my quirky lifestyle choices, saying things like, "I guess everyone's allowed to be a little different these days." Emily's dad didn't say much, but kept giving me looks that made me feel like I was under interrogation. At some point, I quietly asked the server if I could switch seats, but they said it was all pre-assigned. I tried to focus on my plate and pretend none of this mattered. Then Emily's mom decided to start loudly commenting on everyone at the table, and I realized she was making a game of embarrassing me in front of Jake and his in-laws. She kept bringing up my tattoos, my non-traditional career, my dating life, all in front of everyone. I felt myself boiling, and I realized if I didn't do something, I'd just sit there being humiliated for the next 3 hours. So I stood up and said, loudly enough for the table to hear, "I think it's unfair that I'm being treated like I'm some sort of spectacle just because I don't live the way you do. If anyone here has a problem with me, they can say it to my face like an adult instead of sniping behind plates." There was dead silence. Emily's parents looked shocked. My parents looked mortified. Jake looked furious. He stood up and said, "This is my wedding. Can we not do this right now?" I told him, "Maybe you should have thought about what kind of people you were seating me next to." I know it sounds harsh, but at that point, I felt backed into a corner. Things escalated quickly. Emily's mom got up and started yelling, calling me disrespectful, and Emily herself was crying and saying I ruined everything. My dad tried to calm everyone down, but it turned into this massive argument in the middle of the reception hall. Some guests were trying to intervene, some were filming, because apparently this was dramatic enough to be documented, and Jake ended up storming out with Emily shortly after. I left too, because honestly, the tension was unbearable. My parents texted me later that night, saying I had ruined the wedding and that I was never being invited to a family event again. Jake sent me a text saying he was disappointed and embarrassed, and that I had humiliated him in front of his new in-laws. Here's where I feel like I might be the asshole. I didn't go looking for a fight, but I also didn't let someone verbally abuse me in the middle of one of the biggest events of my life, and apparently of theirs. I've gotten mixed reactions from friends. Some say I was totally justified. Others say I overreacted. I honestly just wanted to eat my meal in peace without being called a failure by someone who barely knows me. So Reddit, AITA for standing up for myself at my brother's wedding and effectively derailing the reception? Or was I wrong for letting my frustration get the better of me in such a public setting? Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and subscribe so you never miss new uploads. And feel free to leave a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Your support and engagement mean the world to me. See you in the next video.